Greed builds empires that time will turn to dust. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Let's jump into today's video. In today's video, we are going to be looking at the quote, "Greed builds empires that time will turn to dust." By the way, if you like this quote and you would like to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, right off the bat with this quote, it's very clear that it has two sides to it. First part of this quote talks about greed building an empire, and the second part of the quote talks about how time is going to take that empire and turn it to dust. So, there's definitely something here about how time is greater than greed, and time is always going to win in the end. But that's not all there is to this quote. The first part is just as important as the second part. And when you really break down what this quote means, you can see how true it really is. But before we get into the deeper meaning of this quote, now let's look at each part separately. Now let's start with greed builds empires. You can build pretty much anything out of greed. Greed is one of the most powerful emotions that humans can have. When people are greedy, they don't think about things like ethics or morals. They just want what they want, and they will do whatever it takes to get it. You can build companies out of greed, you can build friendships out of greed, and you can even build governments out of greed. People who become leaders, whether it's a government leader or the leader of a company, usually get there because they wanted more than what they had. They were greedy for more power, more money, or more influence. It doesn't matter what it is, but greed is usually the driving force behind the creation of these big structures, whether we like to admit it or not. On the flip side, you can also build empires out of things that aren't greed, such as love, passion, knowledge, or innovation. Sometimes you see people who start companies and their goal is not to make as much money as possible or to have as much power as possible. Their goal is simply to share their knowledge with the world, or they want to innovate and disrupt an entire industry. These types of people also build empires, but the motivation behind building it is different. With someone who's just motivated by greed, they will do whatever it takes to achieve their goal. They won't care about the ethics of what they're doing. They won't care about the morals of what they're doing, and they definitely won't care about other people. All they care about is achieving that goal no matter what it takes. And sometimes these types of people can become so obsessed with achieving their goals that they lose sight of everything else around them. They become willing to sacrifice anyone or anything in order to reach their goals. When we look at some of the biggest empires in history, whether it's the Roman Empire, the Mongol Empire, the British Empire, or even modern-day American Empire, you can see that greed was definitely a driving force behind the creation of these empires. If you want to learn more about the American Empire, I recommend you check out the book, The American Empire Project, by an author named Chris Martenson. He talks about how the United States is currently an empire, and he talks about the pros and cons of being an empire and what this means for the future of the country. Next part of the quote is that time will turn to dust. In the grand scheme of things, nothing lasts forever. Everything eventually comes to an end. This includes all of the great empires of the past. Rome wasn't always the greatest city in the world. It was once just a small settlement, and throughout time it grew and grew until it became the largest city in the known world. But eventually, Rome fell. The Mongol Empire lasted for about 250 years before it started to crumble, and even today, the United States is starting to show signs that its power is starting to slip. There are many factors that contribute to this, but greed is definitely one of them. A lot of times when countries become greedy and start taking advantage of other countries, that's when other countries start uniting and fighting back. For example, in World War II, the reason why the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union joined forces to fight against Germany, Japan, and Italy is because these three countries were getting too greedy, and they were starting to take advantage of other countries. They weren't thinking about ethics or morals. They just wanted more power and more land. Eventually, this caused the other countries to unite and fight back, and in the end, it led to the downfall of these three empires. In the grand scheme of things, none of us are safe from the passage of time. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how rich you are, and no matter how smart you are, you cannot escape the fact that time is going to pass and things are going to change. We are living in a time of constant change. Things are changing faster than they ever have before. Technology is advancing at an exponential rate. The way we do business is constantly changing, and the way we interact with each other is constantly evolving. The only thing that remains constant is change itself. If you want to learn more about this topic, I recommend you check out the book Sapiens, A Narrative of Humanity's Birth and Death by Yuval Noah Harari. This book talks about how humanity has changed over time, and it also talks about how we might change in the future. One of the main arguments that Harari makes in this book is that we are currently living in a period of constant change, and this change is accelerating. He believes that the future will be very different than the past, and he believes that we need to be prepared for this change. Now, let's take a look at the full quote again. Greed builds empires that time will turn to dust. When you really break down this quote, you can see how true it really is. Greed is one of the most powerful emotions that humans can have, and when people are driven by greed, they can accomplish amazing things. They can build massive empires that span across the globe. However, in the grand scheme of things, none of this really matters. Time is the ultimate ruler, and eventually it will catch up to us all. No matter how powerful we are, no matter how rich we are, and no matter how smart we are, we cannot escape the passage of time. So, what should we do with this information? Well, the first thing that I think of is to be careful of the people who are driven by greed. Yes, greed can be a powerful motivator, but it can also be dangerous. When people are driven by greed, they become willing to sacrifice anyone or anything in order to achieve their goals. They become willing to do things that most people are not willing to do, and they become willing to go places that most people are not willing to go. If you want to stay safe, you need to be careful of the people who are driven by greed. Another thing that I think of when I hear this quote is to never lose sight of what's important. When people become too greedy, they often lose sight of what's important in life. They become so focused on achieving their goals that they forget about the people around them. They forget about their family, their friends, and even their own morals and ethics. If you want to stay grounded, never lose sight of what's important. Make sure you take the time to appreciate the people around you, and make sure you take the time to appreciate the things that really matter in life. Don't let your greed get the best of you. Last thing that I want to say is that greed doesn't always have to be bad. Yes, greed can be a dangerous thing, but it can also be a good thing. When used correctly, greed can be a powerful motivator. It can be the thing that pushes you to achieve your goals, and it can be the thing that helps you succeed. You just need to make sure that you keep it in check. Don't let your greed get the best of you. Use it to your advantage and use it to help you achieve your goals. So, what do you think of this quote? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Why? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Thanks for watching.